Big day tomorrow all across the country. It is election day. You have candidates. Some will win, some will lose. There are major races in Arkansas, North Carolina, Alaska, Georgia, Louisiana, all that will determine whether or not Democrats maintain control of the U.S. Senate or whether or not Republicans will get control of the Senate after already controlling the House. Also, and we emphasize this all the time right here on News One Now, the critically important state elections. It's not all about what simply happens in the U.S. House or the U.S. Senate. It's also a matter of what happens on a local level as well. And so we are encouraging everyone to be sure to vote. As part of that, candidates and their surrogates are traveling all across the country, doing radio, doing television, doing robocalls, sending out all kinds of mailings, trying to get as many people out to the polls. Early voting polls already show in North Carolina, for instance, black early voting up 45% compared to the midterm election 4 years ago. But can that be enough for folks like Senator Kay Hagan? I had a conversation with First Lady Michelle Obama about the importance of these elections.
Absolutely. I mean, the midterm elections are so important to a president's ability to move his agenda, because essentially, if you think about it, the midterm elections are when the country gets to determine the nature and composition of the team that the president has to work with, and that is Congress. It's the governors throughout the state. This is essentially the president's team, and what his team looks like will determine how successful he will be on passing his agenda. When you look at the Affordable Care Act, that is giving millions of people health care for the first time, many people in their lives. That wasn't just done because the president was sitting alone in the Oval Office. It was because he had members of Congress who supported and pushed the bill. He had governors across the state who are now either implementing that bill and making sure that all of the benefits are extending to the folks in their states. But there are governors who don't support the Affordable Care Act, so they're not doing the work to fully implement it in their states, and there are many people who are missing out, and that's just one example. We could talk about education and how much money is spent on early childhood education and what's being done to ensure that state schools are affordable for kids who want to go to college. All that happens at the state level. So these midterm elections are just as important, if not more important, than the presidential race, but every single race around the country is going to be tight. I mean, it's neck and neck. So the margins of difference could be as small as 4 or 5 votes per precinct, Roland. I mean, that's what I've been trying to impart upon people, particularly in the African-American community. Many of these races are won or lost by 5, 6, 10, 30 votes per precinct. So if anybody out there is thinking, well, what difference will my vote make? It can mean the difference of your kid having early childhood education, your kid having access to, well child visits, and the difference between your state increasing the minimum wage could be your vote. And that's why we've been pushing so hard to make sure people are paying attention to these midterms.
Want to go right out to my panel, Armstrong Williams, host of the Sirius 126 Urban View on Sirius XM, Lauren Victoria Burke, managing editor of Politic365.com, and Kevin Martin, advisor to Project 21. It was interesting. I talked to Michelle Nunn, who's running for U.S. Senate in Georgia today. And it would have been nice if she would have been as fluid as the First Lady was in terms of laying out the various initiatives. The president has been talking about positive economic growth. Lauren has been talking about Affordable Care Act, education, Pell Grants, and others. It seems as other Democrats don't know how to even tout the good things that has happened under this president the last several years.
Right. The president is basically out alone talking about his record and doesn't have any real assistance from the Democrats who are running. So this is not about being friends and buddies and being in love with the president. It's about supporting the underlying policy, many policies of which these people have voted for. Democratic Party has always had a problem embracing the health care bill. This has been the problem since the health care bill, came up, whether or not to embrace it. And of course, this is coming up to bite them now. So it's not enough to just say you want black votes. You got to talk black issues. And for some reason, the Democratic Party in this cycle has totally failed to do that. They've played on this sort of emotional thing. You saw the Democratic Party in Georgia did a Ferguson ad. There was some mention of Trayvon Martin in another race. That's all very nice, but there's no specific reference to policy. There is a Conyers-Cardin racial profiling bill. That can connect to Ferguson. Michelle Nunn can come out and talk about that. Instead, what we see is we saw Rand Paul yesterday on TV talking about specific issues that Democrats don't even talk about. That makes absolutely no sense for the Democratic Party. They're playing on defense, and they're going to lose because they're playing on defense.
Hold tight 1 second. I'm going to come back to our panel. When we come back, we'll have more of my exclusive interview with First Lady Michelle Obama, as also with our panel.